I want to remind you, Zoom review for your test. Your time slot will be 1 o'clock on Thursday. So try to make effort. Think about questions you might have regarding your notes for the test, and I'll do a review for that on that day. As a reminder, I still have a few of y'all I've not received tests from. We have sent communications out today regarding that. So please get that into me. If there's some sort of issue going on there, please communicate that to me, or have your parents communicate that to me. All right. So yesterday we ended our notes where we were talking about the Tokugawa ethics, and that their family, once they, the family it was going to rule for 250 years in Japan. We went over a number of terms that you'll need to know. Shogun. We went over the social classes. So once again, the ethics, social structure. So we're going to move into the contacts with Western civilization. And in 1543, the Portuguese were the first Europeans to arrive in Japan. And the Japanese saw the Europeans as barbarians. Really, I mean, they viewed them as barbaric, but they were interested in their weapons. Remember, Japan society very militaristic at the time, and some of the weaponry they would have seen, muskets and cannons. They were very interested in that, so they would have that obviously to defend themselves or defeat their opponents. Also, missionaries. We've talked about the missionaries going out in the lands. This was very common. So Roman Catholic missionaries soon followed the Portuguese there, and by 1614 they had converted about 300,000 Japanese to Catholicism. As time goes by, though, the Tokugawa rulers feared Christianity, and they feared that might threaten their power, and started persecuting them, killing them or forcing them to leave Japan. They did not want loyalty really placed in anything, certainly above the rulers. That's not uncommon. But plus, it was a foreign religion. Basically, they didn't trust it, so they viewed that as a threat. And despite some early successes, I guess, in conversion, they wound up moving them on, persecuting them. The rulers also decided contact with outsiders was too dangerous. So you need to know the Act of Seclusion of 1636. Type that in your notes. Forbade any Japanese to leave the country, and added that all Japanese residing abroad shall be put to death when they return home. That's pretty tough stuff, especially if you're returning home back then and you didn't realize that had been decreed. But they did not want any influence coming from the outside world. Once again, viewed that as dangerous to their society and to its stability. But the Act of Seclusion, 1636, you'll need to know. Japan barred all Europeans except the Dutch. And the reason they did not bar the Dutch from coming in is they allowed contact with them, although it was kind of controlled and limited. They were the only one interested in trade. They, I guess, trusted them that their interests were more business-like, and then they were not interested in a conquest or a conversion of the people. So they did continue allowing contact with the Dutch and the Dutch only. You will need to know that. In Southeast Asia, the Portuguese were the first Europeans to reach Southeast Asia as well. They wanted to control. Remember, we talked a lot about the spice trade, and they wanted to control that. That was very lucrative, meaning it was good business. Make a lot of money from this, and a lot of demand back west for that. So that was a very important thing if they could get involved in and certainly control. They weren't the only European country looking to do that. Spain, for example, was certainly looking for that. A lot of people, we talked about the explorers a couple units back, where they were looking for new trade routes, new ways, to get east, to get to Asia, for these things, in particular the spice trade. The Spanish wound up having a rule in the Philippines. Ferdinand Magellan, we studied him here recently, exploring for Spain. He reaches the Philippines and by sailing west. Remember, he went around the southern tip of South America. We talked about the Straits of Magellan, and of course, we talked about the fact he was killed there in the Philippines. But Spain winds up they wind up developing a colony there, and a colony, a term you'll need to know, is an overseas territory ruled by a parent country. All right, so under Spanish rule, most of the people of the Philippines accepted many Spanish customs as well as their Roman Catholic faith. Missionaries also introduced new crops from the Americas. Remember, they learned about new crops, the Europeans, from the Indians, maize, which is corn, cocoa. Spain's control of the islands would last really until the late 1800s. So they had control of the islands for a couple hundred years plus. And the Dutch took the islands of present-day Indonesia from the British, hoping this would help them get a share of the spice trade. Everybody was looking for that. That was, I guess they felt like that was, the big thing of the day, money-wise, and it was. So there was certainly more and more the European powers looking to get involved there, and they certainly didn't want to fall behind one of the other ones. In the 1860s, the French began to colonize the area of Indochina, and the stated goal was there to protect Christians in the area, but they also wanted the areas rubber, coal, and rice. They wanted the resources. Now, whether they were, I'm not saying they weren't concerned about protecting the Christians, but a lot of times there are reasons given like that, so easier for the people to buy into. But you'll need to know that part right there about the French colonizing the area of Indochina, and them being involved in their that was in the 1860s. That lasted into the 20th century. That section right there, what I just went over, is pretty short. It's pretty short if you're looking at it in your notes. So not that much in this section to look at, but we'll review on Thursday. That'll end this section, and we will test on Friday. So we'll see you then.